to finances, academics, career, and anything personal throughout the semester. If you haven't heard about the program already, just please check the wellness page here at Gateway to just learn a little bit more about what we do. This program today will be hosted with Career Services. So we do have two special guests, Alfred Guante, Director of Student Activities and Career Services. And then we have Ms. Sandra Eskridge, who is the Student Development and Services Associate here at Gateway. Both have a plethora of years in the service as far as career services, advocating for students, and helping them with jobs in the workforce. So without further ado, we'll begin the program. And so just give me one moment as I share my screen.
You're on mute, Maya.
You're still on mute, Maya.
So sorry, did not realize I was muted. Also just stating that if you have not been asked for your name yet, please stay on until the end of the call as we are taking attendance, especially for those who may have called in as your name does not pop up on the screen. And then also, I'm not sure if I was this part, but please keep your phones on mute until the presentation asks for question and answers. And from there, we'll be able to answer any questions you may have. So now I'm going to officially mute myself and start the presentation.
All right, so.
Sorry, here you go.
No problem. Well, welcome everyone. Ms. Sandra and I are happy to be here and hopefully shed some light on some resume questions. This is based on just a general standard resume, just FYI. There are a lot of ways you can make a resume, but it is very important to just have a basic kind of format for a resume. And this format works for jobs. I mean, this is a format that if you decide to use this format, you're fine. I mean, this will be a resume that can get you that interview, right? Because that's what the resume does. It gets you in the door. It doesn't get you the job. It gets you in the door for an interview. So that's step one, right? So now we'll move on to the next slide here. So this is kind of like a blueprint, right? This is an example of what the standard resume would look like. But just really quickly, does anyone want to type in the chat or unmute yourself and tell us what is a resume exactly trying to convey to an employer? Anyone? Really no wrong answer, truthfully. You're not trying to, your credentials, excellent. Thank you.
It's trying to give
Bio?
Impression.
First impressions, yeah. Past work experiences. Thank you, Candace. Very good. Anybody else? Education history. All correct.
Yes.
All right, so let's click there for the next image to come up. And but it's also trying to tell people, very simple, I'm smart. I'm a hard worker. I rock. You know, you want to talk to me some more, right? So that's the goal, is you want to get these employers to say, geez, I really have to talk to this person, right? You get them there, you're going to get that interview, right? That's what it's about, getting them to get to the point where they want to say, come on in, let's discuss this further. I see some things on your resume that I really like. I really want to explore further and how you could be a good fit for this company. Ms. Sandra, do you have anything to add?
Well, what I want to add is when you're writing your resume, make sure you clearly read the job posting so that you can include some of the verbiage that's used in the job posting in your resume, because a lot of resumes now are being tracked by systems. And so it's attracted to certain words. So that's why it's important to read the job posting. And then when you fashion your resume, make sure that you include some of those words.
Yep. So, you'll be hearing that a lot throughout this presentation. I mean, let's be honest. Some of us cut corners, right? You see a job posting, you skip right to the requirements, right? You're just not going to even read the first 3/4 of the job posting. We're just going to go to requirements. Oh yeah, I fit the requirements. I'm good. But you're not taking the time to read the job posting in detail. Now it's very important because that's going to guide everything you do. It's going to guide how you format your resume, what's on your resume, and most importantly, it's going to guide how you write a cover letter. If you're just skipping around, you miss some potentially very useful information. And as Ms. Sandra says, she's 100% right. They have databases now. They just run your resume through the machine, and they're picking up on keywords that match their job postings. It depends. Some of the bigger companies do that. Everyone doesn't do that, but there are quite a bit of companies that are now moving in that direction. So if you didn't even touch on any of the key trigger words that are on that job posting, you're not even. I mean, you're done at the little scanning that they do, right? So we don't want that. We want you to get called in again for the interview. So that's step one.
And I want to
All
say
right.
one more thing. I know we're going to get to it, but look how beautifully framed this resume is. And when we get to that portion in the presentation, we'll discuss it more.
Yep. All right, so everyone has different paths, right? So some of us are completely brand new to a field, right? And completely brand new to working full time. And that's important. So how you build your resume is going to depend on what path you have traveled. Then some of us are completely new to the field. Let's say nursing, radiography, or whatever. But you're not new to full time work. You actually have had full time experiences in the past that you're going to want to highlight to give yourself any edge you can over someone who may be more in that first bullet, right? They're completely new. And then the last one, of course, you're new to the field, but you do have some experiences in different capacities that may or may tie in a little bit to that job, right? Not to the T, but enough to say, let's say supervision, things that employers may be looking for that you can pick out of certain experiences, even though they're not entirely in the field. Some may be, some may not be. You want to know how to highlight those items. Okay, so everyone's walking a different path, but you're all have the same opportunity to get an interview. It's just what you do with your paperwork in the forefront. Miss Sandra, okay, you're good.
Yes.
So no, you just jump in there. So what is your path, right? So let's say you're new to the field and you're new to full-time employment. Your resume should focus earned experience related to that field. So, like, if you're brand new to healthcare, okay, and any kind of clinically based job like nursing and things, I'm using that as an example because it's a kind of a straightforward example. Your experience is going to be not the jobs because you didn't work full-time jobs yet, right? So you're not going to want to put McDonald's and things that you're just doing just to get money and pay bills. You're going to want to put jobs, internships, and things that relate to that field. So that's how you want to start your resume, at least, right? So, for example, clinical rotations, right? A lot of allied health programs have clinical rotations. You want to highlight those. Specifically in nursing, they go to quite a bit of clinical rotations. So they're earning experience as they go in those various units, pediatrics, adult health, you name it. They go through all of them. Maybe you had an internship in a particular area that directly ties to this job you're going for, but you didn't work full time. But that internship now becomes a lot more valuable to you. So you want to make sure you highlight that. How about a shadow day? Sometimes you have an opportunity to shadow people. I know that a lot of jobs don't offer shadow days. Those usually have to be built. They take quite a bit of work to do so because building relationships with employers is a time consuming process. But some of us may know a nurse or may know a banker. And because of those relationships, those people may say, come on in and just shadow me for a day or 4 hours or 8 hours. That's an experience you want to highlight. Again, any little advantage is important to note on the resume that ties to this field because you have not worked full time and you have not worked in the field. So, any related work experience and even volunteer experience. Yes, volunteer experience is very important. And now, I have to tell you, most times, I've worked at 6 universities and colleges, and students are always, I don't want to volunteer. But sometimes, even if you volunteer to be a little selfish, but you give back some time, and at the same time, you gain experience. So you should look at volunteer experience a little different than maybe how you looked at it in the past. Maybe there's no internship at this place that you really want to work at one day. Maybe there's no shadow opportunity. But what if you call them and you say, hey, look, I want to offer some time. Well, what can I do to help? I just want to be around. I want to help this place in whatever way I can. You start to get in there once a week, once a month. You network. You never know who you may meet. And then guess what? When you actually earn your degree and your credentials, you have a relationship now of someone that can maybe get you to where you need to be in a place of employment there. All right.
And
Anything else would go under additional experience. Go ahead, Miss Andrew.
And also, very important with volunteer experience because there are people who've gotten hired based on having volunteered. Because what you've done, you've demonstrated that you can be counted on, that you're interested in the work, you come in every day, you do your best. Those are actual experiences. And sometimes organization will say, well, we have this person who's been volunteering for a year. We got an opening. Let's bring this person on board full time. So volunteer experience is really, really valuable.
100%.
Yes, same with internships. This is why I push very hard for internships with my students, just because a lot of full-time employment places know that students that are pursuing a degree necessarily may not have that background. So if you have an internship that gets your feet wet and allows you to kind of do the functions of their day-to-day work that they will want you to do once graduated, they'll definitely look at your resume and put you towards the top.
Yes.
Yes. And also, just one last thing about that too. Make sure you do some research on this internship.
Yes.
Ask the right questions. What will I be doing in this internship? The worst thing you could do is take an internship just because it's in the area. You didn't think about it. You didn't research it. And now you're a week or two in the internship and you absolutely hate it, but it's a semester long internship, right? So, but now you have to be there to get that on your resume and have that reference point, or you may end up leaving, going to another reference, another internship. But that could also backfire because now you're rotating around on internships. Okay, so definitely take the time to consider the internship just like you would consider a full-time job offer. I mean, it's that important. And you may want to ask them as well before you consider an internship, is there an opportunity to shadow for a day? Like that's a question you can ask. I mean, they don't all offer it, but say, hey, look, I really am interested, but I just want to know it's a good fit for me and for your company. Can I come in and shadow? Is there an opportunity for me to mirror what someone's doing for a set amount of hours, half a day, 8 hours? In the healthcare setting, they call it shared time. So if it's healthcare, you want to ask for shared time. Do you have any shared time experience? Everyone else, you can just say shadow. And if they say, hey, I don't even know what shadow is, then you can explain to them. It's basically me coming in. You don't have to pay me. I just want to shadow someone who's experiencing your organization in a role that I would like to do one day. That's it. Nice and easy. All right, so now you're new to the field, but you're not new to working, right? You've worked full time. You've been around the block. You kind of know how to get a feel for things. You've worked with different people. So you want to make sure you highlight that. I've had students that change careers, even here at Gateway. They've changed careers going into like something in healthcare or something completely different. And I've checked their resume and not a single ounce of anything else. And I just, because what me and Miss Sandra do, we don't just edit your resume and send it back to you. We ask that you make an appointment, we look at your resume, and then we have a conversation. All right. And then we tell you the edits, and then we have you send the edits back. So then we can correct anything. But now you're more informed. But in that little conversation, we're asking questions about who you are as an employee. Because without asking the questions, I would never know some of these people work full time ever. And I really quickly say, oh, wait a minute. We need to highlight those points. And the reason we need to highlight them is because you're always going to have people for each job that lack overall work experience. So if you have a more seasoned manager and they're looking for an overall seasoned person with some experience under their belt, they're going to want to see those experiences on the resume. So you really hurt yourself when you don't put them up there. Now you look on paper, you will look exactly like the person who's new to working full time, period. Right? But that's not exactly telling the truth. You actually do have experience. So when you list it, make sure you list all of these diverse full time opportunities under additional experience. If it's a general job, you're going into any general fields, business, you can find business in almost every job, right? Writing, you can find writing in almost any job. Then you just list it as, professional work experience or work experience, right? But if it's healthcare, you really want to create an additional experience section and put all of those full-time opportunities that you've had under there. Because again, any advantage is a good advantage. You have to consider it's a competition at the end of the day, but really the competition is between you and you, if you look at it, because you have the opportunity to really highlight yourself, and not doing so is shortchanging yourself, not nobody else. Okay. So typically the last, 2 or 3 jobs, space permitting, right? You don't want to go too crazy. The resume, we'll go into the actual length and stuff, but it really should be about a page. And 2 to 3 bullet points, right? So if you list a full-time opportunity, you want to make sure you put key bullet points there. So bullet points, it's one line, okay? You don't want to go into 2, 3 lines and call it one bullet point. So one bullet point is one line, people, all right? So just make sure that you stick to the one line for one bullet, and 3 bullet points about that for each additional full-time job experience. I would say that's good enough to give the employer an idea of some of the essential functions you had at that job, and consider that as good experience for them or not, or move on. And if you don't have room for whatever reason, because you will run into this, right? Those of you who have more experience will run into space issues. Then it's okay to say, okay, I'm just going to list the job as is at the bottom. So you were a teller at Citizens Bank, New Haven, Connecticut, and those are the dates I was there. That's good enough. If you really lack space, fine. But if you have space, I encourage you to put the bullet points. But if not, you've at least teased the employer enough for a conversation. A question will come up during the interview, or that's what your cover letter is for. But we'll get into that a little later. Ms. Sandra, if you have anything to add?
No, I'll wait until we get further along.
No problem. All right. So then now you're new to the field, but you do have some experience that is related to what you're actually going into. All right. So now you want to list everything under, work experience. But if you have a lot of experience in that area, but not a degree, I would even encourage you to say, hey, this is my professional experience. Or if it's in healthcare, then, hey, this is my healthcare experience. I've been CNA, I've been whatever, right? That's important. You have to highlight yourself in that manner, because guess what? You have more experiences than the typical person applying to this job fresh out of college. So you want to make sure you highlight that. And then, of course, any of the jobs, you put them under additional experience if you have room. But remember, now we're talking about a person that has a
Mm.
lot of related experience.
Yes.
So it's not necessary, but if you have some room, you can go ahead and put it there. Why not? Any little bonus is good. But you also don't want a cluttered resume, and you don't want one with a lot of white space. So
Right.
you just want a balanced resume, kind of like the image that we had at the front that Maya had there. Perfect, right? Something like that, easy to read. You want to guide the eyes, all right? You want to guide the employer eyes. If the employer is looking all over the place, it's not a good thing. Okay, the chances are they're moving on to the next resume. But
And
if you provide a format where they're going to say, okay, who am I looking at? Where do they live? Where do they go to school? Where do they currently go to? Like you just guide them, and your resume is kind of telling a story. Versus what a lot of people do, not everyone, is the resume is really about them. Oh, I got a picture. I got fancy graphics. Oh, I got color coded everything, and it gets to be a bit much. And the employer will be like, "Yeah, thanks," and then move on. So you have to consider the resume is, yes, it is about you, but it's also about who's reviewing it, is it not? Got to remember that. That's that. It's about a job here, people. It's not, it's not a modeling competition.
yeah.
It's not a photography competition. So, Ms. Angela, you want to add to that?
Yes, I want to point out in the section where the headings are important because you might have a lot of experience, but going back to the job posting, if they say they want someone with a clinical background or healthcare background, by labeling that section healthcare experience, that will draw the reader's eye directly to that. The other things may be important, but not as important as what they're specifically looking at. And you're going to be looking at your job posting and your heading. That's really important that you follow that, because sometimes your professional experience is not relevant to what they do, what they're asking for, but it is experience that's important to show. But focus on what the job is asking for.
Absolutely. All right, so these are some key things to consider as before you write your resume. Okay, some of us just want to dive in there and start typing, but you have to think a little bit about where you're going with this document.
Yes.
So the first thing is, the font, and this is one that's a killer. To be honest with you, I've seen students screw this one up so many times. I mean, to be honest, I've seen adults mess it up a lot. Staff, listen, I've been on a lot. I've been on 4 search committees. I think 1 at UConn and 3 here or something. And then of course, having worked in career and stuff, I've seen my share of resumes, and that is the first turnoff, the font.
Yes.
All right. So stick to basic fonts, people. So Times New Roman for me is a fallback. That's default.
Yeah.
But some of us like Calibri and some of us like Arial. Okay, cool. No problem. Just consider this. If you're picking a typical font size, and that font size should not be bigger than 12 at all. It should not be bigger than 12, and be very careful about being smaller. I mean, if you got to go 11, okay, cool, no problem. But you really shouldn't go under 10. But as I say that, consider the font you are using.
Yes.
Okay, don't just throw it up there and type up the whole resume. Type a few sentences on a blank document in Times New Roman, type another sentence in Calibri and Arial and whatever other font you're considering, and then highlight it and make it all the same size. What you will notice sometimes is that the other ones may be bigger at 12 than Times New Roman is. That could mess up your entire resume. So even though you may say, oh, I'll use another font, whatever, just be careful. Okay, just make sure that it's equal size. And believe me or not, it's very obvious. It will literally be bigger, and it's the same font size. Okay, it's kind of like you go shopping for a pair of jeans, right? Every pair of jeans is not going to fit, even though you might say that's my size. Why is it not fitting? All right, so it's the same mentality. Be careful, because that can distort your resume. It can make it look awkward, and it can take up a lot more space. stick to black font, please. I mean, I can't say that enough. Do
Yeah.
not go crazy with font colors. At the end of the day, computers are not going to care about the color. So black is the best way to go.
It's
And
a
then
standard.
employers,
Mhm.
yeah, it's standard. And employers will care when they actually print it. They will care about the font if it's something that's distracting them from what they want you to portray on that resume. Periods for bullet points. A bullet point is what it is. It's a bullet point. You don't need to put a period at the end of each bullet point. It's already a bullet point. All right. So just make sure you don't add a period there. And then again, like as I said at the beginning there, graphics and photos is really not necessary. If you wanted to add a little design here and there, that's a little tasteful. That might be okay, but definitely not your picture. I wouldn't put my picture on any resume. I highly discourage you from doing that. But you also have to remember what field you're applying to. So if you're going into a field that encourages that, like entertainment business, that's different.
Modeling.
Modeling, yeah, acting, that's
Yeah.
different, right? But we're talking about regular jobs. You really want to make sure these people who are reviewing you look at you for who you are, right, on paper and what you bring to that organization, not how you look or anything else, okay?
And unfortunately, you because some of the climate, the people who are viewing these resumes, if they're done by a person, you definitely do not need your picture there because it can be used as a means of discrimination, and you need to be avoiding that at all times. You want them to recognize what your skill sets are, what work you've done, but you don't want them to say, oh, well, I don't want that person, because people do get booted out of a pool if they don't meet or look a certain way.
Yep.
And also, back on the font, we're recommending these fonts here because you don't want to use a very fancy font, because some of the tracking systems can't read those fonts.
All right.
And as well as the bullets, you don't want to use a real crazy kind of a bullet because some of the systems cannot read those.
All right. Very good point. All right, page margins, right? Always start with 1 inch. Don't go under 1 inch until you absolutely need it.
Right.
You just want to see where you're at. If your resume fits all on that one page, and you're good to go, 1 inch, just leave it there. Leave it at 1 inch, okay? And adjust as needed. However, be very careful with going under 0.5 on all sides. When you go to Microsoft Word, you can edit top, bottom, left, right. So all those margins can be edited, but just be careful that not to go under 0.5. Yes, it'll look good to you when you go under 0.5. I can assure you that. However, how that document will print on all of these random printers that you're sending it to,
Exactly.
good luck. They're
Yeah.
gonna cut off half your name. It will not be a good look, and they're not gonna stop to call you and say, "Hey, your resume format cut off. Can you send us a new one?" No, they're gonna move on to the next candidate. I can assure you of that. So don't go under 0.5. However, having said that, if you go to 0.5 or even regular 1 inch, save your document as both. You're going to have a Word document, right, automatically, but save it as a PDF. And that's important because a PDF, what it does is it takes a picture of your document, right? It kind of locks in an image. So it cannot be edited, which means that if you're submitting a PDF, whenever possible, some jobs can't even take the PDF, right? Some applications can't take it. So then you have your Word document. But when they can take the PDF, my recommendation is submit the PDF, because it doesn't matter what printer is printing from. It's going to print. It's a picture. It's a snapshot. It's a locked in image. That's what a PDF does, okay? So all computers are different with how you do it. Some is you save as PDF. Some you actually have to go to print. You print to PDF and then you save it from there. So just play around with your computer, and figure out the best way to do that. But that's a good tip in terms of not losing anything on your document. Templates. Oh boy, me and Miss Sandra's favorite friend. So, I tell you, templates can be your best friend or your worst enemy. If you find that right template, oh, you're golden.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I don't see too many good ones. What happens is you have to consider what a template actually is. That is someone that's really a computer person that built this, you know, analytical document that really only they can edit. So when you need to heavily edit a resume, it's going to drive you nuts. I had students submit stuff to me where I took a couple of looks at it and I'm like, whoa, all right, this is the problem. You're working with someone else's document.
Mm-hmm.
So my recommendation is build your resume from scratch. Don't cut corners. Get a blank Microsoft Word document. We're going to show you, formats to use today with how to, set up your resume and start from scratch. I mean, you will do yourself a huge favor because as many times as you need to edit down the road, and you will need to edit as you improve, as you grow, as you get more jobs, you will be thanking yourself for doing so because you know exactly how the document works. You did it. You typed it from scratch. It's not a template. So, templates will say, oh, sorry, you can't space down twice right here.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't alter the margins. Oh, no, that's the font that we require for this template. So, and the list goes on from there. Trust me, there's a lot of weird things about templates that only the person who built it can really control. So, all us regular folks need to do a blank form on Microsoft Word.
So I
Okay,
think that the word to remember is a template will limit your ability to do the best job that you can do.
that's
Because if
exactly
it
it.
gets too difficult to do and too difficult to read, then your resume is going to go into file 13.
That's right. That's right. About
Also known as
13.
the trash.
Oh, I didn't want to say trash, but that's true.
That's funny. And finally, obviously you want to list your jobs, most recent job first. Okay. And then you have to think to yourself, well, what was the job I had right before that job? And then that's the second one, and so on and so forth. Right. So you work kind of backwards in that order, but always with the most recent opportunities first. Always list the dates. It's very important. You don't need exact dates either. I mean, month, year to month, year is fine. October 2015 to October 2017, I was at this job. No problem. That's fine. That's a lot to ask. No one's really caring about exact dates, but you need to give them kind of a framework of where you were and, when.
Yes.
All right. All right. So obviously, most cases, and if you've worked part-time jobs here and there, and really this degree that you're earning or certification you're earning is really to launch yourself into a full-time job, or you're brand new to the field altogether, or new to working, whatever. One page, okay, that's going to be most people. One page length. If you happen to have a lot of related experience, and I mean a lot, then we could talk about that, but probably no more than 2 pages. You have to remember there's differences between resumes and what's called a vita. Vita is like an academic thing. It's people going to academia. They'll have, oh my God, you name it. I used to do enrollment for a doctoral nurse anesthetist program, right? And those people would hand in Vitas that were like 12 pages. I mean, it's crazy, okay? But what a Vita does, it describes their entire work history, their entire academic journey, and then they go into detail about each academic journey, like classes taken and what was earned from each class and awards and merits. It's really different. A resume, 1 to 2 pages, all right? I've been in the field of higher ed 16 years. My resume is 2 pages. It's possible. Okay. So, like, you have to sometimes be able to be okay with saving something in your back pocket. And that can come out in an interview. So it's okay. Like, but if it's related, make sure it's on the resume. move things around. Okay, remember, every resume is not a one size fits all. So you're gonna have to alter your resume and make different resumes for different jobs. Keywords, as Miss Sandra already told you earlier, that's important. Make sure as you read, and remember to read the entire job posting, make sure as you read it, you're identifying those keywords that they're looking for, particularly in duties of the job, requirements of the job. Those will be the key sections where you'll find those trigger words. Put some of that in your cover letter. It's important, like talking those in that language, okay? Looking for managerial skills. Oh, well, at such and such place, I used to manage. Maybe on your resume, you're going to want to say, manage a team of 4 people, right? So, trigger words, okay? And then obviously, any supporting details. So, it's good to add like whether or not you had qualitative or quantitative data to back up your experiences, all right? So, quantitative is, oh, I boosted sales 40% in my company in my first 6 months. That's a big stat that you might want to put on your resume, right? So if you have any numeric type of quantitative data that you could put on your resume, that's a positive thing. Put it there. They love that. That's easy for them to read. They don't have to read, they might jump to that. What was that say? 40%? Oh, wow, look at that. Okay. They'll just jump around. So, you don't know who's reading a resume. Their approach to reading resumes, that they're all random and all over the place. There's no one way, right? So anything you can do to help yourself is important. And then obviously, most of us will have qualitative stuff up there, right? So, created a project that enhanced academic grades for students in grades K through whatever, right? So that's a quantitative experience. That's something that you could have a number for, but you kind of sum up with what you just said. You just say, hey, this clearly improved grades, right? So they may ask you more questions about that. So you want to go to the interview ready in case they say, well, what was the difference? One question might be like, what was the difference between before you had this project implemented? So they might say, well, students were struggling. They really didn't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. So you might say, once I put the project in, they told me that it was a 15% increase, or students were in the B range where they were normally in D range, whatever, so like whatever you have to say, that's how you back it up. So you don't just want to put something if you're not ready for a question about it either. Okay, that's very important to remember. Don't put it on your resume if you don't want to be asked. They will ask you. And then of course, any leadership roles, always important. Every single job, doesn't matter what the job is, has leadership roles. I don't care what you're doing out there in the world. Leadership is a part of every single job. Okay, so make sure you list any of those opportunities that you may have had on your resume as well.
Yes.
And just, sorry, but I say just to throw it out there that SGA are looking for leadership roles for people to sign up for. So if you like to be a part of the student government, please contact Alfred after this.
Yes, we would love for you to get involved. We also have the campus activities board, and leadership is what you make it too. I will add, you don't have, so it could be SGA, it could be CAB, the campus activities board, it could be you joining a club that's existing. It's not a lot of them right now. Or you could say, I might want to create a club. There's different ways. There's no one type of leadership. People get really hung up on titles and stuff like that. You're either a leader or you're not. You help a lady who is maybe older and struggling to get across the street. Everyone else walked by her, but you didn't. You're a leader.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't get all caught up on the big leadership titles. Everyone can be a leader, and that's why we talk a lot about that in our leadership academy. That happens every summer. So it's a 5-week leadership academy. So we do all these types of things intentionally around here because we want you to develop those skills.
And I just want to add, with regard to keeping the resumes to 1 page or 2 page at the most, you want to be specific about how you develop this resume. And you don't want to put in busy words, because people who are accustomed to reading resumes know that you're just trying to fill in, and you don't want to do that. You
That's a
want them
good
to
point.
have a positive attitude to what you have written. So that's why you have to be very strategic in how you develop your resume. And sometimes you have to develop it more than once to get it the way it should be.
That is a very good point. Very good point. All right, so now we're going to get into formatting, and um, we'll move a little quicker here.
A little quicker.
Yeah, because I know, got you, Maya. We got time. So in terms of formatting your resume, obviously the first things first. They want to know who you are. Okay, so your full name. Yes, it's important to put your address. A lot of people refuse to put their actual address. I can assure you, employers are not showing up to your house. If they do, call the police. That's very weird. Okay, very freaky. Run away. But I don't know why. I mean, Sandra has seen this also. They just refuse to put their address. Nobody's coming for you. It's okay. Like, put your address on the resume, okay? And you need to put town. It's important to put town and zip, your phone number, the one that you answer the most, and then your email is super, super important, okay? If you're a student at Gateway and you're not graduating anytime soon, and you're going for internships, you might want to use your Gateway email for that, right? But if you're, on your way out, then you do want to use the email that you're going to be checking the most, which is your personal one. And these are just two quick examples of how to format your header.
And I want to make a comment about these email addresses. I've had to advise students, please do not use some weird kind of email address like hotchick.com or dutsyboy.com. No, don't use those kinds of because it's not professional. And if I saw one like that, I said, well, you're over there with the other people in file 13. I'm not looking at that. The resume is a professional document and you want to keep it that way. So just be careful what type of emails that you're using. And if you have 2 or 3 emails, make sure that you don't use one that you would normally use with your friends, with a professional one. And with your telephone numbers, please put in that section a current telephone that you answer. Because sometimes when if an employee decides to call you or human resources persons try to call you and they say, oh, they can't respond to you via telephone because your mailbox is full or it's not set up. So just be careful about that.
Yeah, I would even, add to that, like, if you know that you have a interesting email, I would create a different email to apply to jobs.
Yeah.
I just go out, sexy chocolate may be good for your friends.
Yeah.
But you don't want an employer reading that. So just FYI, remember, everything counts. Everything counts here.
Yeah.
And I just want to add a simple way to create an email address is your first and last name.
Yep.
Yes.
And if it is a common name, you just add a few different numbers that is something that you can remember. And then you have an email address.
Good.
That is
Good
really
tip.
correct. Yes.
And just remember that, first impressions are lasting impressions, and your resume is technically your first impression. So
That is right. That is it. Yep.
And in your name, you see where it says name, you might want to make sure that you bold your name so it'll stand out a little bit.
And also, one quick thing I just thought about it too, as Miss Sandra was saying your name. Use your whole name. If nicknames aren't on government documents, okay, you don't have. This is not your friends here. Okay, these are strangers to you. They're employers. They're looking at you for employment. You do not have to use your nickname, please. Like, they're gonna know your entire life anyway. If you get the job, okay, you're gonna have to give them a lot more than a resume and a cover letter. So make sure you use your entire game name as it is on your actual government documents, because it's going to match. Worst thing you want is to have a background investigation and they start asking you questions about your name because you put, a nickname that's nowhere near your actual full name, and you don't want to delay process or even worse, just for something simple.
Right.
All right, so now we're building the resume. So we start at the top here, right? The name was there. Yep, they're good.
Okay.
Good. Name was there. Now we're moving on to your education. And what you want to do is with your education is you want to list the most recent education first. So if you're at Gateway right now, whether it's a change in career, whether it's a beginning, doesn't matter. That's what you want to put first. Okay. And then obviously, if you've already earned a degree elsewhere, then that's second, and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is important because you quickly are, again, you're providing them the story, right? Who are you? Where'd you go to school? And then from there, you're moving on down the resume, all right? And you notice that as you're creating this resume, it's nice and neat, okay? There's gaps, there's space. My eyes can easily follow everything. I'm not struggling to figure out what schools or what years you were there. It's all right there for me to see, and I can quickly move on to the next section. All right, so now this is some of the stuff, kind of what we were talking about already. So now you're starting to move along. So now we did the name, which is the header with all your demographics. And then now we moved on to education. And now we're starting to get kind of into the middle part of the resume where you're going to list your experiences. And again, as we discussed earlier, that's going to vary depending on who you are, right? What was your path? So remember that you have a different path from everyone. So you want to make sure that you highlight your resume in that fashion. So again, whether it's a clinical experience or whatever, your clinical experiences, if you're in nursing or sonography or all those programs that make you go to all these clinical rotations, that's going to be first for you. That should be highlighted front and center. For example, there, clinical rotations, you have a header and you say, oh, I did medical surgical at St. Vincent Hospital in Bridgeport. And in parentheses, you want to let them know how many hours. All right, give yourself credit. So, you have to put in a lot of time for these clinicals. Put the amount of time in parentheses. And then, of course, we have the date, as always, the month, year, and whenever you were there or whatever. Sometimes semester is fine, too. I would just be consistent throughout the resume, but it's okay if you just said, oh, I'm just going to put the semester, I was there fall semester. That's okay. Because a lot of allied health people understand that it's a clinical for your program. But for the other jobs, you want to make sure you put the month and the year. Easiest thing to do to not confuse yourself is to just do month, year for everything and call it a day and move right along and not think so hard, okay? Or, of course, if you're going into more of a general field, then obviously work experience or, again, professional experience if you do have a lot of experience in that area. So here you're a teller, Bank of America in Wallingford, Connecticut, and you let them know when you were there, and then 3 bullet points that told them a little bit about what you did for them there as a teller, okay? So obviously, there's a lot more that tellers do, but, those are just very quick examples of just how to format it. You want to think your job through a little more and make sure you're very deliberate about what you're writing as a bullet point because each bullet point counts.
Right. And I think it was an important point. One, I'm asking students to develop a resume and they can't remember everything. I just say, make a list of the things that you did and answer the question, what did I do? So it's a process and it helps you to develop the right bullet points to put in your resume.
Yep, 100%. And as we go to the next slide here, also another tip is, going back to the job posting. I mean, we're going to drill this in your head, but you have to read the job posting. As you read the job posting, one good tip is to, if you print it out, and I know printing is not a popular thing these days, but think for a second. You print it out, and as you read what they are looking for, you jot down notes right on the job posting as to how you relate to that particular requirement or duty that they have you doing. Now, when you're done doing that and you went through the whole thing and you have all these notes, guess what happens? You can go ahead and easily edit your resume, work on your cover letter. It's all there. It's just a matter of formatting at that point. But you wrote notes right that relate right to that job posting. All right, so that's just another tip. There's all different ways. All right, so now, we're moving on here so now we're moving further down the middle, right? So we had our name and demographics, we had our education experience, we told them about our work experience, professional experience, or whether it was clinical rotations or whether it was internships, right? Now we're saying these are additional experiences that I bring to the table. So for that person who was in clinical rotations, they would put shadowing, for example, or shared time in this area. So, I shadowed a registered nurse, a registered nurse in pediatrics at Midstate Medical Center, which is in Meriden, but I put New Haven just to mess with people, whatever. It's in Meriden, but it's fake. Okay. So, you put, how long did you shadow? Well, you already answered that question. You put 8 hours. Okay, so you're not actually doing the job. But what happens is they may prefer to give someone an opportunity who was exposed more to the field. So what you're doing when you're shadowing is you're actually gaining valuable exposure. You may not actually do it, but you've seen it more. Okay, so it's important to list that experience if you actually had it. And then, of course, community service is very important. So that would be a next category, and where you did the community service. Sometimes you could put in how long, if it was just a day, but if you did it for like a year, then you just put the month and the year as we have here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now we're getting towards kind of like the bottom of the resume, right? So any additional certifications. Some people like to put certifications under education. It's a matter of choice. You can close out with it too, so you can put it in its own section to kind of highlight what those certifications are. And, it's always good to put like an expiration date if it applies. If it doesn't apply, you just put the year and the date you did the program, et cetera, et cetera. Skills. Okay, this is a very important section because you have to determine what you think a skill is. And what we found is that what some people think skills are, not actually a skill. Okay, so you have to have like exact skills. These are like computer skills, for example. Okay, you want to list those down. Anything in Microsoft Office is really good these days. Maybe there's a software that you use in a particular field that is not used elsewhere that you know how to use. Put that down. Okay. Some of the things you want to kind of stay away from. I know it's enticing, but if you start to say, great time management skills. Well, I hope so if you're going to work for us, right? That kind of comes with the territory, right? We want you to have good time management, but it's not really a skill you list. It's a skill you display. So that's something you have to consider the differences in. So is it a skill that I have to kind of show when I get to the job? Well, I'm not putting it there. But if it's a skill that I know because I've done it, it's proven, I've developed it, it's an intangible, then you have to list it, right? But so just be careful with skills because I've seen list of skills, and by the time I got done with the list, it was like maybe 2 skills. It was like 15 listed, but I got the 2. So just be careful with that because it can look like fluff. That can take you not serious. You don't want any reasons to not, call you in for the interview, which is what we're talking about here, interview, okay? Multitasking, I wouldn't put that. Some people do, to each his own, but I would stay away from that. I mean, there's not, if you really stop to think about it, there's not a lot of things you can do without stopping one thing to move on to the other, okay? There's not a lot of those things. So there might be a few that you can actually say I'm multitasking, but most of us can't type an entire email and be on a conference call and actively participating at the same time. You're actually stopping one or the other so you're not multitasking. You're stopping. Don't put it down. Okay. So just be careful. And then, of course, any involvement in extracurricular activities, they could be here, they could be outside of here, they could be at a YMCA, they could be any religious affiliation, church, synagogue. There's a lot you really have to stop and think. This is why you don't rush your resume. You have to stop and think about all the things that you've actually done. Give yourself credit, okay? You may not look at something as a big deal, but you tutored a kid from some program for 6 months. That's extra. Put that down. Okay, that's a lot of patience, by the way. Depending on the age of the kid, that's a lot of patience. Give yourself credit for that. All right. So, so that's how you wrap up the resume. Okay.
I wanted to add that if your resume is 2 pages, make sure at the top of the second page you put your name and the page number. So it would be like 2 of 2. Because what if you have more information and it gets lost? It without your name on it, they won't know who you are. So
That's
and the first page will look like you didn't put everything was supposed to be there. So just make sure that you put your name on the second page.
That was great detail.
a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of before we go to questions, reference page. This is just a very quick example. So same. You notice it's the same header. It's
Yeah.
consistency is good. You know, it also tells the employer that you're organized. Okay, so if you put the same header for your resume, same header for your reference page, and as you'll see, same header for your cover letter, you're keeping everything consistent. Um, so if just very simple, list the reference, who they are, what their title is, where they work, and the address for the organization or company, and of course an email or phone number or both if you have them. Always put both if you have them,
Right.
and then that way they can contact that person about your experience working there.
Okay.
All right, resume questions. As you can see, the resume, it takes a while. Like, you know, we were talking for quite a bit just about the resume. The cover letter, it's more thought into it, but it's a quicker overall process because the resume is so important to getting you through the door.
Does anyone have any questions on the call? And my apologies, I cannot see the screen. I can only see my PowerPoint.
Any question? You can type them in the chat too. Is it important to have a cover letter? Good question, Catherine. It really depends on the job, but what I will say is this, right? Some jobs will literally mandate that you hand in both. Okay, so you don't have a choice. And if they mandate it, you definitely should do both. However, I will say this. There is nothing wrong. In fact, there is something to be earned if you said to yourself, well, they didn't ask for a cover letter, but I'm going to write a quick one anyway. You will look a lot better. Think about how many people didn't write it. Just think about that for a second. So if you go ahead and say, I'm going to do this little bit of extra effort, somebody might actually read it. That might be the difference in getting you through the door for the interview.
I think that's some good advice because even though a cover letter may not be required, let's say you got a temp working in an office one day and then there's a resume that comes in, they won't know what that resume is for.
Yep.
And oftentimes a resume is seen before, the cover letter is seen before the resume.
That's
So
right.
it's important that you provide a cover letter.
I do have a question. As far as the resume, can people change the order of, say, like the education and the work experience, or do you recommend to keep the order that you presented today?
I would say if you are mostly new to a field and new to working full time for sure, I would go with that standard order. If you have a lot of experience, like, you know, all of us have worked a ton and stuff like that, then no, the education could be at the end. It could, you know, it's different. There's different styles. So really, um, you know, anybody that uses this format, you're fine. You're not in trouble. It's not wrong, but it's not. It's mostly probably for sure. If you're brand new to a field and you don't have a lot of full time experiences, I would definitely stick to that format. And then,
We have
Catherine, we're actually going to be going over the cover letter shortly.
Okay,
So
and we
that's
have
a good question. How many jobs should be listed on your resume? Patricia asked. That depends. I mean, it is again, if you have a lot of experience, and I mean a lot of experience related to the position you're applying to, and you have a lot of jobs that you think you should be up there, and it's going to go over a page or whatever, then just stick to the guidance that we said about no more than 2 pages. But really, it should be a page. So what you want to do is kind of highlight the ones that you feel pertain the most to the position you're applying to.
Yes, that's
Good
correct.
questions. Let's see, anything else? Am I
So
missing
just
anything?
before we move on, I know we have caller 2, which is Janelle, and caller 3, Fernanda. Who is caller 6 and 7 for attendance purposes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, this is
You just
Shauna
state
Woodard.
your
I'm one of the
first and
callers.
last name. I'm sorry?
Shauna Woodard. I'm one of the callers.
Oh, Shauna. Welcome, Shauna. Oh, I think what happened is you probably got disconnected and hop back on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what happened. I have to call back.
And then there's another caller on the line. Caller 6.
Am I Robert Torres?
Yeah, Robert, we see your name.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
How are you, Alfred?
How you doing, Robert?
Good, good, good.
is Janelle Scarlett one of the names listed? I do have her written down.
Yeah, she was caller 5,
Okay.
but there's caller 6. I don't know who caller 6 is. All right. It's okay. Alfred, take it away.
All right. Well, if you have any more questions that come up about the resume, let us know at the end here, and we'll definitely address them. But we'll move on to the cover letter. So here's an example of a cover letter, right? Got Maya James. Who's that? I don't even know who that is. No, just kidding. So you see, again, look at the header, right? Nice and neat, similar to the other headers for the resume, the reference page. Now she's going into who the letter is going to. So there, with when all else fails, try to find a person to address it to, if possible, right? Every job posting won't have it, but then you might want to say, human resources at whatever organization, address, right? That stuff you can find, okay? And then the date, and then you go into your letter, which we'll get into a lot more. And there's different lengths of letters. Typically, I would say a page. So this is a page, but you see that there was a lot more that Maya could have wrote. Maybe it didn't call for this particular position, right? But when you do need to write more, that's fine. And there's ways that you can do little things to make more fit on the page. But certainly, I would stick to 1 page for the cover letter because you want them to read it. All right. But there's ways we can get more on there. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So first thing you want to do is we're going to start thinking about 3 whys. Okay. Why this organization or company? That needs to be on that cover letter. Okay. Why this position? Okay. What do you bring to why do you want to apply to this position? Right? Sometimes you want to talk about your passion behind it. Maybe you've worked your whole life for this position, right? And then why you? What are the intangibles that you bring to the table and to this organization? Those are important. So, right, you're talking about why this organization. That's your opportunity to rub those shoulders, people. All right, you gotta massage them a little bit, like, oh, Yale rocks, or really wanted to work at Gateway, and I've seen the phenomenal things you've done, and but that's where the research comes in, right? You can't make it up. Don't make anything up, okay? So
Right.
go research that company website, find some news release, some stats, things that speak to you. Don't go listing all these stats. This doesn't have to be a big section, okay? But if you look at each section here, right? Why this organization or company? If that's about a paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences, a typical paragraph is 5 sentences. But on a cover letter, you can get away with 3 sentences. It's okay. but 3 to 5 sentences, then why this position, and then why you. You already have 3 paragraphs. So now we're talking about the introductory paragraph and the conclusion. So that's your 5 paragraphs right there. Quick, bang, 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 and you're done with the cover letter. All right. So we'll go into more detail now, but that if you think about these things, it's important. They'll kind of guide how you're writing this cover letter. All right. And they're a great way to provide details that you can't get into on a resume. Okay. So remember, the resume is bullet points and quick things because the goal is quick delivery of information. The cover letter is like, well, I'm gonna use the Bank of America experience again since that's the example we use. But like when I was a teller at Bank of America, I used to manage. I was a senior teller, and I used to manage 3 or 4 people under me. So that coincides with what you're asking this position to do in the management of 3 people at your organization, right? That's something you would explain just in that fashion, different words, doesn't matter, on your cover letter. And now you're telling the employer something key that they were looking for. You brought in from that experience at Bank of America, right? And, again, I suggest creating it. It kind of will give you a little bonus, even if they don't ask for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to personalize your resume so that the reader will know that you're specific about their company. Because if you just write a generic resume, that's what it looks like, a generic resume.
Yep. Yep. So now we're starting to format the cover letter. You have your, again, same header, right? Matching the reference page, matching the resume. Now you're addressing the cover letter to someone. And the first thing you put is like, hey, look, this is for this. You're letting them know this is about that bank teller opening. And I'm addressing it to the person who was on the job posting. But just in case this is not going directly to that person, sometimes you might want to put something else. But if that person is not listed, there's no name, then you might just say human resource department or hiring manager is good too. So
Yeah.
those are just 3 options on how to, who to address the letter to. And then, of course, the organization name, the address, and things of that nature. That's important, okay? So it's literally a letter you're writing. Remember, it's a letter. Okay, so you want them to see it organized in a certain way. And then from there, you want to space down 3 to 5 times. There's no wrong or right amount of spacing. It's just a matter of where you at and what you need room for. So if you do 3 and you figure you want to get a little bit more room, do 3. Okay, and then start writing. If you need to do 4, fine. Okay, and then you write your date. And the date should be centered. It should be in the center of the page so they can clearly see when you wrote it. And that's important because you want to. It's kind of like telling them, "Look, I made the deadline, right? So I met your deadline that was October 30th. It is October 15th. This is when I'm submitting this letter." I would always make sure the date matches the date you're submitting it. That's just me. Is it wrong if you don't? No, as long as you're on time, you're on time. But I would just try to match it as best possible. So like I'm submitting it today, it's October 28th. The letter's hopefully not due tomorrow. Hopefully it's due a month from today or 2 weeks at least. Give yourself time. It's very important to give yourself time.
Right.
All right, so now we wrote our date. Again, front and center, bold, make sure they know what the date is. You space down another 3 times. And now you start to actually craft the letter. And dear Mrs. Brenda Patterson or hiring manager. Remember, you have some choices depending on what they give you off the job posting, which is why it's important to read the job posting in full detail. Again, there's a lot of things you're looking for in that job posting, and they keep coming up in our presentation. So now you're addressing it to this person. Space down 2 times, it's double space, and then you start writing. You can start writing indented, meaning you can indent once, and then everything else is not indented, or some people like to write everything not indented. So it doesn't take away either way, all right? But the point is to definitely start writing after you double space from the dear section. Dear Mrs. Brenda, double space, start writing, all right? All right, so now you know this is just an example of what an opening, paragraph may look like. The bank teller opening at Wells Fargo Bank is an opportunity that excites me. I've been fortunate to have a host of experiences working with customers, and I have learned skills that can be valuable to Wells Fargo. I believe I could be a great asset to the Wells Fargo team, right? So you just giving them kind of a little bit of something to kind of introduce yourself, open up the cover letter, double space between each paragraph. So you would just double space again and start writing the next paragraph with no indentation. You can indent the first one if you want. After that, you don't indent the other paragraphs. Okay, so now you double space and you start writing the next section. As you notice, we skip right to the closing because we can't tell you what to write. Okay, so remember the 3 whys. Okay, why this organization, why this position, and why you. Okay, and then you close. So open, why organization, why position, and why you. That'll get you everything you need. If you don't rush, you just take your time to be very thoughtful about those key things, and then you close. And then, something simple like it is my hope I am considered for the bank teller position and be able to join the Wells Fargo banking team. Contact me with more questions, phone or email, sincerely, and then you sign your name. Now, if you have the ability to print and scan and actually can sign your name, that's good. That's good. Go for it. That's a great thing. But if you don't, then at least use a different font to sign your name. I think it just looks a little professional. I think we were all talking about this when we were reviewing for this workshop. So just always don't leave it blank, I think is what we're saying. Make an effort. Sign it, scan it back to yourself, and then save it and send it off to the employer, or simply use a different font with more of a cursive style, signature style hand writing. Okay.
So I think that a point to remember is that the cover letter is like a marketing tool. You do want to get the attention of the reader. And also the spacing is important because if it's too cluttered, probably the resume will not get read. You don't want to jam everything up together. So the spacing is really important.
Also, I will say, so we're working on a host of things on the website, and one of the things I just submitted to marketing, we did a sample cover letter that Ms. Sandra wrote. So that'll be on the website soon as well. Under the career website, we're going to have a self-help menu. This presentation will be there. Currently, we have resume tips, a sample resume for both kind of an allied healthcare person, and a general one for any general other jobs. There's going to be eventually a document with interview tips. So we're going to build a self-help menu on there. We're working on all of that. So the sample cover letter will be there eventually. If it's not there now, because they haven't let me know yet, but we can always get that to you as well. Just shoot, me or Ms. Sandra an email if you want that sample cover letter. We'd be more than happy to get it to you. But the goal is to have something on the career page for every type of person. Someone may not have time to meet with us. They may just go look for something on their own. Okay, so something for everyone. Questions about the cover letter, resume, anything?
Well, I like to make just a statement. When it comes to resume and cover letters, just please make sure you have someone do a second look after you complete your revised version or your original copy. To either have Miss Eskridge or Alfred look over it, or someone that you may know that is pretty good at writing and making sure everything's formatted correctly. It's just always good to have a second look because there might be things that you may overlook by accident that someone else can then find and fix for you.
That's true.
Very, very good tip.
And please make sure that if you're making an appointment with me, that you send me a current telephone number, because my practice is to email you back to let you know that I'm aware that you're trying to get an appointment with me. But I work remotely, so I call each student that I'm working with I want to make sure that I have a current telephone number.
Yep. Yep. You know, and often people kind of think career services gets you the actual job. That's just not true. Okay, put that out there. We don't get you jobs, but we put you in positions to make sure that you have the best opportunity to get a job. So whether that's getting you the job opportunity itself, like you may see a lot of my employment opportunities emails, or giving you certain tools, refining your resume, refining your cover letter. Eventually we will like to get into some interviewing stuff, as well. But we give you as much as possible to be able to make sure you feel confident and comfortable in going for whatever opportunity you want. That's what career services does. So there are headhunting agencies. They get you jobs, but I don't think they can actually put you in the job itself. I think they get you opportunities. And Ms. Sandra can actually speak on that. She used to be a headhunter, right, Ms. Sandra?
Yes, I was a headhunter, which I like very much. One of the things that you need to really understand about going to an agency is that no matter what resume you send in, they're going to adjust it so that it fits the model that they want to send forward. So it is important that you send them a resume, but they will adjust it, and they will be the ones making contact with possible employers, and they don't want, and so they're like the middle person.
Yep.
So just make sure that you do the best that you can, but they will adjust it, and they will bring you in to talk with you about the job. Some of the things that Alfred was bringing out, why do you want this job? How do you think you qualify? Why this company? What do you know? Those types of things. So um, whatever resume you develop, whatever cover letter you develop, it will be redeveloped. And it doesn't mean that the one that you presented is incorrect. It's just
That's
that
right.
they have a format that they need to follow for their business.
Yep. Yep. And so that's all temp agencies for sure. They do that a lot. And actually, one of these days we'll do a presentation from my colleague over at Yale with the Yale New Haven Hiring Initiative. And one of the things, she talks to me about all the time is that's one of the things she does. She makes sure she works with each candidate to switch around their format of their resume because Yale only likes a very, very particular way of the resume being written. So that sounds funny, but that's what they do. So a lot of people stop right at the door. They can't even get past the resume part because Yale wants it formatted in a very particular way. So that's just how it works. That's just, to each his own. Companies can do whatever they want. So you just have to adjust or speak to the people who can help you adjust. And, my colleague, we'll bring her in one of these days to discuss more about the Yale New Haven Hiring Initiative as well. So yeah. Any questions?
I just had a quick question. I noticed that there's a Charlene and a Shauna on the call, but I don't have the last name. Could you just state your last name, Charlene?
My last name is Peters Frederick.
And Shauna?
This is Shauna Woodard, also from the call. I'm just using the call as audio.
Oh wow, you have many avenues. I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
you were part of the workshop. We're glad to have you.
So, thank you.
Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions for us, I would like to thank everyone for attending our career workshop today. I would love to give a special,
Actually, I have a
special.
question.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So, when you say, when you was talking, I'm sorry, I don't get the name, but you said that we should use at least one specific font. But is it okay if we use if we bold some of the stuff or don't do that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like if you want to make your resume pop a little bit more, I've actually recommended that to some students. You want to put all dates in bold, right? Space, another next date, bold, certain titles. What you want to be careful of is if you're putting like a position title, I would and then the company like pick one, like italicize one and then bold the other one, but don't put both in bold because they're on top of each other. But that's yes, that's a good question. You can't use bold to enhance your resume as much as possible, but not all bold. Don't put bold next to bold. Just simple little things like that.
Yeah. So you want to bold your headings, like your
Yeah,
education or your professional
yeah, for
experience and
sure. The
things like that.
headings, 100%.
Um, and then caller 6, actually, the person with the question, could you just state your name?
Yes, my name is Janelle Scarlett.
Janelle Scarlett. Okay, thank you. And I think Janelle Lawrence had a question. But she's not able to, I think she might be on mute.
Hmm.
Caller 2, could we unmute caller 2, Alfred? That's Janelle. She just had a quick.
I'll call her too. Let me see, where is? Let me find her. Just hit unmute, but she has to, I think, accept.
If you have a question, Janelle, you can always email me at a later time.
There she is.
Oh, okay.
It worked. Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Oh, awesome. Yes. I can't, I'm like, mute me, guys. Okay. So my question is, when you guys were discussing the resume and I wanted to know, like, for me, for instance, like um I worked a job maybe like 6 months. So I had a job that I was there for like 3 years. I got laid off. I had another position for like 6 months. I got another job. I was there just for example for a year. I want to leave this job and I'm applying to another job. Do I have to include the one where I was not there for like a year?
Was it related to what you want to do, or the new job that you're
Ye-
going to?
I don't remember, so let's just say yes, it was, just in case.
Well, then, if it was related to something that you want, that you're trying to get to, then I would say you should find a way to include that. The thing you have to remember
Okay.
about resumes, there's hundreds of ways to do them. So
Yeah.
you need to just find a way to include it. Now, there is a school of thought that says that if you don't have over a year of experience in a job, that you don't need to include it. But I actually don't agree with that, because
Okay.
also there's another school of thought. Well, if you did this 10 years ago, you don't need to include it. I don't agree with that either. That's why I like to personalize each of the resumes, because you may need
Okay.
that experience to move you forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I thought that like if you haven't been there for like a year, then you're not you shouldn't include it, because employers look at it like, well, you weren't there for longer than a year. It gives a bad impression. So that's why I asked.
It really depends. I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah,
some employers
nuance.
may do that, right? But there are those that will say, well, she was there more than enough to be trained in those essential skills. So you still learn some things from that organization that you can bring to the organization. Now you were there 2 weeks, so it really depends on the employer. So it's hard to completely answer it, but I would agree 100% with what Ms. Sandra's saying. If you need it and it relates, you should put it down. But what you want to do is kind of think about, really think about what you will say when they ask you why you left. Okay, that's more important than listing it. So you want to make sure you're very honest, and there's nothing wrong with growth or with a better opportunity. You can't apologize for go to get more money or a better overall opportunity. So, and a lot of the people that are hired people have done the same thing. So it's okay.
And also, there's a way of thinking that you don't want to rewrite your resume in your cover letter. So that's why crafting the cover letter is extremely important. So if you can't put it in your resume, then you can find a way to place it in your cover letter to bring attention that you do have that experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions today?
Put my email in the chat. Think of something, feel free to reach out.
Yes. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for the career workshop. And a special thank you to Alfred and to Ms. Eskridge for the amazing presentation with all the valuable information. If any of you have any more questions, please feel free to email myself or Ms. Eskridge or Alfred. We will all leave our emails in the chat. And also, please take the time to just check out our webpages on Gateway's webpage, the Wellness Center, as well as the Career Services page, as we will have a lot of information there. So I hope you guys all enjoyed, and we'll make sure that we keep you in the loop for our next presentation. And tell a friend and tell a friend.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for having us.
Pleasure.
you,
Pleasure.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome.